When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish,
the podcast that's canonically gay.
Boy, howdy. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today...
I don't know why I started to want to do a theme song that wasn't a D&D theme song. Dun, 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 dun. It's a sports intro for a D&D themed show. We're redoing D&D.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, which is our first installment of what we're calling Redo-cember.
Yes.
Not too long ago in our Facebook group, we did a poll and asked everybody, hey, if we were to revisit some topics, which ones would you want us to look at first? And then we committed to doing them within the next year. We did first dates already over Yakima Pride, but the others that are close to the top were Dungeons & Dragons.
Nope.
And
wait, was that at the top? We're doing this because it was requested by Zackery Cochran, which is also, I don't know where it fell in the vote, but that was not one of the three. But yeah, but there were other two that people voted on.
Great. Oh, yeah, butt plugs and gay dads. Anyway.
Yeah. Zachary requested this for being a Gap Bridger, and then that fit in with the whole theme. Back when we did D&D, we actually didn't talk about D&D too much. We talked to our D&D group.
Yeah, it was a bit we did for a whole hour.
And y'all loved it. I don't know if you did. It was like episode 7. So
it was like episode 9 or something. It's super ass early.
Yeah. But partially because of the request of D&D, and then because of the vote, and because we were procrastinators, it works out that December is going to be a month of merry redos.
Enjoy Redo-cember, everybody, which is a fucking Danism. He invented that.
Yeah.
So send him your hate mail. No, I mean, I think it's adorable. I love a good pun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we have a vote. Well, it will not have ended, but one of the vote that we're doing for the Gap Bridger poll this month are topics we have submitted and voted on and have not won the poll in the past. So everything is in some way a Redo-cember. So
yeah, and I can't turn on the time cave because we're remote today. We're remote today because I've been under the weather. Thank you for letting me kick you out of my house, I guess. I don't know.
I wasn't sure, metaphorically.
Sure. Yeah. So first off, at a certain level of Patreon, if you send in 100 words, I will say them. It doesn't matter what they are. And we have 100 words this week. Comes to us from Kevin Henderson. And yes, I'm going to read the beginning of the email, Kyle. Fucking deal with it.
You're not reading the 100 words. You're reading the email and 100 words. It's not.
Well, and fine. Actually,
I have no opinions about it. I just bring it up every single time for no reason.
And he was over 100 words, but I'm going to let him. I'm giving them those last 6 for free.
Yeah, no, because if you want to go over it, you say, here are my 100 words, and you contain it within an email that's more than 100 words. So then you just read the full thing, no matter how many words it is. What does the word count matter? I'm muting. I'm danning.
How many 100 words did you just go with? Oh, man. Okay, here we go. Forgot I had 100 words until I recently heard about putting something in Mike's mouth. I could have said so much more, but here are my 106 words, also attached as a word file. I found Gayish at episode 5, and I think I remember recordings in the library. At the time, I was in a toxic relationship with a much younger guy. I listened to Gayish every Sunday during my 75-minute commute to preach, and I loved you guys. What I heard entertained me and gave me strength to end that relationship and to be happily single. A year ago, I re-met a guy I had last seen 10 years and 900 miles ago, now living nearby. 25 years after meeting his friends, we are living gayishly and planning the future. I think we need a gayish toast at our wedding. Peace, Kevin.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so giving us a lot of credit. I appreciate that. But that's so sweet about kind of where he's at and how he's grown.
And I'm inviting all 3 of us to his wedding.
Oh boy, I'm really busy for the next. When are you getting
Forever?
married? 5 years, 10 years? You really just wrapped up, and
Is there an open bar
someone's going to be open that night.
or a back room?
Let us know, Kevin. Thank you. That was very sweet.
Yeah.
I'm going to say one more thing in the news that I think is very important, and that is you let us know recently that we have a new top episode.
Yeah. Our number one episode for a long, long time, because y'all are horny bastards, has been jerking off. But this week, I think, this month certainly, it has now been topped by Bottoms.
So, Bottoms, you've reached the top finally.
Yep.
Not that you need a top to validate who you are. Okay. News?
Let's do the news.
Shut your mouth hole. It's time for your ear holes. News.
All right. News the first. So, hey, Kyle.
Hey, Mike.
I don't know if you noticed, but the gays have been very, very sad this week. There was a monumental death that we absolutely have to talk about.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do our due diligence and cover that right now. Pioneering gay porn filmmaker Wakefield Poole is dead at 85 this week.
True?
Yes, he revolutionized gay erotic films and has died at the age of 85.
Who could we find to sing a beautiful song about him? Maybe write a beautiful theatrical production dedicated to his life. Let's find the best person.
Yeah, he went into the woods and died. No, he died October 27th, but his death was not reported widely until the New York Times published an obituary this last weekend. He was originally a dancer and made Boys in the Sand, which was a take on Boys in the Band, and he went to Fire Island and followed star Casey Donovan through a variety of sexual encounters. And apparently it was a really big deal, and it came out in the early 70s. So
I had no idea.
Apparently he's a big deal in the porn industry, and lots of people are sad about him dying. Also, Stephen Sondheim died. Great. News the second. Don't at me, theater queens. No, we should absolutely say that Stephen Sondheim, who is by some accounts the person that reinvented the American musical, like the Broadway as it exists today, we have so much we owe to him for making it a thing. He also was gay. I mean, you figured. Probably, involved in Broadway in any capacity whatsoever. But yeah, he was indeed gay, although he didn't come out until it was late, I think. He was about 40 when he came out.
So he was canonically gay.
He was canonically gay.
Okay.
Yep. He wrote the lyrics for West Side Story and Gypsy, then later became a composer and lyricist. He did A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Company, Follies, A Little Night Music, Sweeney Todd, Merrily We Roll Along, Sunday in the Park with George, and Into the Woods. And just we've lost a treasure, and a gay treasure this week. And lots of, especially theater queens, are very, very sad, and rightly so. So, yeah. Stephen, thank you for everything.
He can't. He's never going to.
Oh, no.
Yeah, okay.
No, the trick I'm banging, Stephen. He's in the hallway.
Hey, Stephen, keep playing with yourself. Mike's sick and needs a little something to keep him going this episode.
Oh, God. All right. Next news?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know whether to call this news the second or news the third, but there's this adorable thing that happened at a Harry Styles concert. This girl named McKinley McConnell ran up near the stage and held up a sign that said, "My mom is in section 201, help me come out." So apparently Harry Styles stopped the concert, went over and talked to her briefly before coming running back across the stage to the microphone to say, Lisa, she's gay. And so that's how this girl came out to her mom at the Harry Styles concert.
Do you think that's real? Anytime like anyone random and adorable happens, then you like look into it and it turns out there's some shitty backstory, they're horrible people, or like, you know, there's just going to be this like big, you know, think piece that comes out in the New Yorker about, you know, the tragic backstory of Lisa or something. I don't think anything good ever happens without something tragic following.
Well, there is a TikTok of the moment, and unless she's really good at CGI, it seems pretty fucking real to me.
Okay.
Or an excellent Harry Styles impersonator. We could also start that rumor if you want to. But yeah. Anyway, they were on Ellen, which I wasn't going to mention that part because I thought we were canceling her. But she said, quote, I had come out to my siblings a couple months ago, so I knew I wanted to come out to her. It's a very new, weird tradition at his shows that he started to help fans come out. And she didn't initially plan to come out during the concert, but explained it was a last-minute decision. Yeah. And her mom said that she had initially been flooded with adrenaline and emotion at the moment, and she couldn't be prouder of her daughter for embracing her authentic self in such a beautiful way. I knew how she felt about this artist, and to share such an intimate part of her life with an entire venue, I was very proud of her, Lisa said. I love her very much for doing that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. Yay, lesbians. And news the last.
Great.
Amy Schneider, who is making headlines for being an 8-time Jeopardy winner, debuted on the show. She's trans. I buried the lead. She's trans, and she is the first annual Tournament of Champions competitor that is trans. And she started on the show on November 17th in the middle of Trans Awareness Week, and has since then gone on to win the game 8 times, earning $295,000 for her stunning victories.
After taxes, you know, it's barely anything. Damn liberals.
Thanks, Obama. She also sort of made some waves on trans Twitter for wearing a trans pride flag pin on the November 25th episode. Explaining her decision to wear that, she wrote on Twitter, quote, Thanksgiving is a holiday that is all about family, and that can be hard for anybody who has been ostracized or otherwise cut off from their family, a group which, sadly, still includes a disproportionately high number of trans people, especially trans youth and trans people of color. So it felt like a good time to show my membership in and support of a community that might be having a hard time right now.
Man, straight people just do all their straight things, and a trans person wears a pin, and it's got to, like, you know, like, justify it.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
That's the news.
Very smart, it sounds like.
Yeah, she's super duper smart.
Well, speaking of the smart people, I want to tell you the following people that supported the best podcast on the internet. This one. Thank you to Patreon members Chris Harbold, Chris with a K-R-I-S. Marcus Sanders, or sometimes when he's feeling fancy, Marcus Saunders. Luke.
Is he a colonel?
Okay. Luke. I gave you what that deserved. Luke. Just Luke. Young Nicholas.
Oh, we know that bitch, sort of.
Yeah. That's why I was giving you the space needed to know that bit. And Ricky Chavez. So thank you to all our Patreon members. If you want to join, if you want to, I don't know, get the episodes early, get some stuff, have some bonuses, be a part of an exclusive club of intelligent people, go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Yeah, we're lining up a tour for 2022 now, apparently. So we need the funds.
Yeah, we're trying to get something together. Details forthcoming.
Do you want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. So, thank you to Zackery Cochran for requesting this. Do you want to chat about what we're doing first? The fun extra thing, since we're talking about Patreon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So so the Patreon segment this week is going to be you and fucking Dan and I and some straight guy named Eric. We're going to play Dungeons and Dragons with Quiz Daddy Chris from the Wednesday Game Day episodes of Have a Nice Gay. He's going to be our dungeon master, and we're going to all play a pickup game.
Yeah, so we'll have a few episodes. So give me a little bit of patience if that comes out late, depending on just everything. But yeah, we will have. Chris wanted to do like not just a one shot, but like a campaign. So I don't know exactly how it's going to last, a few episodes or something. But those will come out hopefully bi-weekly from here forward, and hopefully that'll be fun. Hopefully I'll like that. Yeah, thought that'd be a fun way to do the bonus content for the D&D episode.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a good D&D podcast?
You all love it. I'll just go ahead and say, and I have some suggestions too in my section, but do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm going to talk about the history of D&D, Kyle.
What?
Yeah, I know. So Dungeons and Dragons was originally put out by these two dudes, one of whom is named Gary Gygax, which I just think of gagging every time I say his name.
The last guy that gaxed on me.
Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. The guy whose name you never remember, Arneson. But you never remember because it's very like next to Gary Gygax. Which motherfucker are you going to remember?
Yeah, I had no idea there was another dude.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was first published in 1974 by a company called TSR, Tactical Studies Rules Incorporated. It was bought by Wizards of the Coast in 1997, and they've run it ever since. Longtime fans of the franchise have sort of a love-hate relationship with Wizards of the Coast, but a good local company here in Seattle, the Seattle area, the Seattle region. And it's really interesting to me that Dungeons and Dragons has become the cultural phenomenon that it was, because when they were trying to get it off the ground, nobody would fucking buy it. Like they had a hard time finding somebody that would be willing to publish this son of a bitch. And so they ended up just publishing it themselves. And then they only had a budget of $2,000 and they made 1,000 copies of the game that they sold all of them in the first year. And then they sold 3,000 in 1975, and then it just took off from there and went absolutely insane. But part of the reason that they couldn't find anybody to publish it is because of the nature of Dungeons and Dragons. Like, if people don't know, it's a tabletop role-playing game where you make a character, and then you all sit down, and then the Dungeon Master presents scenarios, and then you say what your character wants to do. And then the Dungeon Master says, hey, roll these dice to figure out if you're successful at that or not. And it's collaborative storytelling more than it is a game. And all of these game publishers were like, what do you mean nobody wins? Fuck that noise. We don't want that. Fuck it.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's a story? Nobody wants that. Fuck it.
Yeah, and trying to explain to other people that don't know how you play and don't kind of understand the concept. I mean, same with me, like before I played, was like you just say stuff. And it's like, well, what are your options? It's like, okay, yeah, there's some mechanics behind it, but like mostly, what are your options? Do say something out loud, and then that your character is going to do, and then your dungeon master will tell you if it works or not, or if you have to do anything to make it happen or whatever.
Yep.
And your character has things like abilities and spells or whatever shit they have, but like, yeah, no, you just sit around with your friends and I'll say what you're doing.
Yep.
It's like make believe. It's like, hey, how can we make believe okay for adults to do? Because we're not allowed to just do that anymore. We can't just like play. So we have to like create a game to help us make believe together.
Yeah. I mean, take away the dice. It's just improv. And you know how people feel about that.
Yeah. No. You're also not forcing anyone to watch you. Oh, wait. Except join us for listening to us play, and please pay money for it. Fuck, damn it, Mike.
So early versions of the game were kind of problematic for a number of reasons. I remember pretty distinctly. Oh, like more on the personal side of stuff, like later in the show, I think. But I've had access to Dungeons and Dragons books since the mid 80s. Like my dad's one of his fellow Washington State patrolman was a fan and gave us a bunch of books and dice and stuff, and it was all like first edition stuff, as I recall. And anyway, I remember there being like rules for like determining if your character is disabled or not. Like, here's the dice that you roll to figure that out. Or like if you're injured in battle, like there was a whole table of stuff that you could roll to figure out like whether there was anything like to make you less than able-bodied as a result of what happened. And very problematic. They've gotten rid of that. They've tried to clean their act up over the years and be sensitive to, you know, changing political climate or whatever. So the game got successful in the 80s, and then that's actually when Gary Gygax, there was sort of like a hostile takeover situation, and he ended up going to court, and then he just sold the company. He sold his part of the company in 1985. So even though he's still this like name that's associated with the brand, possibly because he sounds like he's a monster, the Gygax.
No one knows at the end of Dungeons and Dragons, to win, you have to beat the Gygax.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And Christian theology really helps.
Or blow him, whatever.
What would my character do?
Christian theology. So it's also about that time, the mid 80s, when the Christian right goes fucking crazy about Dungeons and Dragons. Don't let your kids play it. It's devil worship. It was supposed to be promoting devil worship, witchcraft, suicide, murder. They freaked out about the fact that there were naked breasts in drawings of some of the humanoids in the original AD&D manuals. That's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There were monsters like harpies and succubi that were like anatomically correct. And I remember like when I was not being into girls, I was hoping someday that those tits would look amazing.
I like the idea of you looking longingly at the idea of tits. Like it's not the tits that you're longing; it's the longing for the longing. That's
exactly, exactly. And
also, I'll suck you bi.
Right.
I'll suck you gay. I'll suck you straight.
Bis, call me. But yeah. So it also there have been some attempts to pin like. The game was blamed for some of the actions of Chris Pritchard, who was convicted in 1990 of murdering his stepfather. And it's been studied to figure out if any of that is even remotely true, right? Like psychologists have looked at this and no, playing Dungeons and Dragons can't make you a psycho or a murderer or disappear out of your dorm or...
Do video games make you violent? It sounds like the same...
Exactly the same thing. And I guarantee that whatever is next in the universe, we're going to be asking the same shit. Virtual reality is turning us all into like bestiality pedophiles or something.
Is that where you like young dogs? Like young animals?
Yeah, exactly. Give me some of that puppy ass. No.
So yeah, what are we talking
moving
about?
on? Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of that in Texas? I'm sure that shit went down in Texas of like, don't let your kids play this fucking game. They're gonna like kill each other and skin each other or something.
Vaguely, and then but not really. It was like I had heard of it. You know, knew there were like jokes about that's what nerds do. Like those are kind of the I don't know. I feel like, especially with podcasts, there's been so many people that have gotten into it and it's become more kind of accessible to more people or something that, and they've intentionally made it more inclusive, which I'll talk about a little bit about, but like,
yeah.
Or the stereotype of it is no longer, it's just for like nerds.
Yeah. But it still has like a nerd. There's still a nerd cred thing. Like there's nerd cred in a good way. Like I'm chill. I play D&D or something, which for the longest time, I was more nervous about telling people I play D&D than I was about that I was gay.
Wow.
Like I did not think that was going to go well.
Like when Glee came out and everyone was like, oh, now it's okay that I'm in the Glee club. Like that's, it's so nerdy that it's cool now because TV says like, yeah, it has that kind of vibe to me.
Yep. So there is a little bit of a controversy to talk about here in the history too that I wanted to cover real quick, which is apparently Gary Gygax is dead, right? But his son, Ernie Gygax, he's Ernest Ernie Gary Gygax Jr.,
He's a Muppet that lives on ABC Road with a bird pal.
So there is, because of a bunch of fuckery, there's still a company called TSR, even though Wizards of the Coast bought D&D. And then even more fuckery, there's actually two companies called TSR, and TSR-A and TSR-B are saying that they're not going to be involved with each other anymore because of the behavior of Ernie Gygax. Now, so one of the things somebody asked, like, hey, why don't you guys like sue each other so that you eliminate that there's two companies with basically the same purpose that have the same name? And their response was, we don't have enough money to come up with a lawsuit.
God, they didn't do like a PR spin on that one. They just really just stuck with the truth. Yeah. You never see that anymore.
So Ernie has been making the rounds promoting his company and the stuff that they're doing, and he was on Sci-Fi for Me's June 23rd live from the bunker, which I think is just a YouTube channel, but it quickly made the rounds in the D&D world. While he was on there, he made racist remarks about Native Americans, blasted Wizards of the Coast for addressing D&D's history of racism, saying it's a call to, quote, join the pack of lemmings, basically saying woke culture is ruining D&D, and suggested that his company was comfortable supporting writers and artists with anti-trans views. Quote, there's a ton of artists and game designers and people that played TSR, and recently they were dissed for being old-fashioned, possibly anti-modern trends, and enforcing or even having the concepts of gender identity. All I'm trying to do is fill the strip mine, allow this fertile soil to produce more games and products again. And
money.
People picked up on that, and the trans community said, hey, why don't you like make it clear that you don't hate trans people? And he really didn't. He kind of came out with this half apology of how I never meant to hurt anybody, but I was bullied as a kid, and like that fucking changes anything about what you said. And he, I guess, he deactivated his Twitter over all of this, and then these two TSRs are like disassociating from each other. Like, what does this have to do with, like, sure, your dad invented this game, but why do we even fucking care about you anymore, you weirdo?
I hate that deactivate your Twitter is like code for me. Like, oh, this was a big deal. Turned out this Twitter. Oh, that's the scope. Now I get it. Yeah.
Anyway, the founders, at least the founders' family, at least the founders' son, has some issues. And I think the game definitely has had lots and lots of issues that they've largely tried to clean up, especially as they've gotten more successful and more corporate and more mainstream, which I don't know if I'm trying to tee you up here, Kyle.
Very good. Yes, very good. I'm gonna talk about some of the inclusivity. I read an article on geekandsundry.com by Eleanor Tremier from 2019 with just a couple examples. And what I'm seeing is they seem to be trying to make it more inclusive, which even some of the things like, you know, that you and I have both said about this of like, oh, they're trying to adjust for the current political climate. Well, like the current political climate is like, hey, like us humans are here and also exist. Like, so they like, you know, increase the percentage of female characters to like 20 or 30 or something percent. It's like, oh, cool. Like the existence of female characters, like that is this the modern political climate that we're talking about? We're not even up to 50%. Which is like what the world is anyway. So like, yeah. So, you know, even as I describe things like inclusivity, it's like, there should be like a different way to say, like, instead of being super shitty before, they're slightly less shitty to human beings or some, you know, anyway. So in this article, it talked about a main person that has been, several articles mentioned, is Jeremy Crawford, of someone who came on board around, I think, 3rd edition time frame, not working on the rules, but doing creative stuff. He is gay. He is intentionally tried to focus on when he was writing one of the ventures, like he was like, of course I'm going to make this like include LGBT characters in this story. That's like, he said, quote, all of our new adventures contain LGBTQ plus characters. This is true of our next adventure, and it will be true of our stories after that. The 5e, so there are all these different editions that kind of update and progress the rules, also make you buy more rule books every time they do it. So that's useful too. But in the current edition, the edition we're on is 5th edition. So in the latest handbook for Dungeons and Dragons, this is what it says about your character's sex. You don't need to be confined to binary notions of sex and gender. The elf god Corellon Lorethian is often seen as androgynous or hermaphroditic. It's intersex now. And some elves in the multiverse are made in Corellon's image. You could also play a female character who presents as a man who feels trapped in a female body, or a bearded female dwarf who hates being mistaken for a male. Likewise, your character's sexual orientation is for you to decide. So that feels like they took a nice healthy swing, you know. They're really swinging for it. I suspect they can update and improve on that. And there are like a million characters and stories and shit to talk about. So I am not going to cover the full gamut. So if I don't know, send in your favorite story that I didn't talk about with your favorite character of, LGBTQ identity. But Char is a gender fluid character, again, trying to point out the good and bad that they do. This is in the Adventurers League game called Birds of a Feather. So this gender fluid character, it's instead of using any pronouns, they just say the word Char over and over, the name Char, like instead of saying they or using different genders or anything, and pronouns like, so it's again, like seems like they're trying to make good steps, but like maybe have not talked to anyone who's actually gender fluid. It's like, how would you actually refer to yourself? And
okay. I was just going to suggest that's a really good strategy. Like if you don't know somebody's pronouns, you can usually just go with their first name and it's fine. Right?
Yes. Also, I think like you're right. Maybe a gender fluid character or character. Adult human real life person talked to them and said like there are characters that do this. You may also use they, like you may like people use pronouns like more often. I guess it could just be that they were trying to avoid pronouns altogether in an effort because they were too nervous. Like that was my read of that. And when asked about it though, this is on the kind of positive side. Char says, in game when Char's asked about their gender, why do so many people ask questions that do not matter? I am who I am, as fluid and powerful as the sea itself. Now, if you want to know how it feels, it is like wearing your favorite perfectly tailored clothes every day. It was the first thing I did with the powers I gained, and I have been forever comfortable. And in the article, it mentions like, that's a really great, positive, affirming message. So I can tell the work on it seems like they still have places to go, ways to go, and hopefully they keep doing that.
Well, and gender and sexuality is that's sort of what they're working on now, and like they've had race problems before. Like when you make your character, you pick a race, right? And then are you human? Are you dwarf? Are you an elf? Are you a gnome? Are you whatever? And but they're also like sub races, which it's not too far of a leap to go from sub race to like white people, black people, brown people, right? And so there are these like elves, for instance. They're the drow elves, which are the evil elves, and they're basically elves in blackface. Like they're just it's not okay. And so they've been working to clean up that mess and make like racial distinctions between different subgroups as being like not something that's actually meaningful. That doesn't have any impacts on gameplay, whereas it used to. It used to a whole bunch.
Yeah, didn't it like have like actually impact your like skills and which is like, oh, if your race Like, let's codify that different races are better at things.
Yeah.
Bit.
You're black, +2 to running is basically what they were doing, right? And like, it's not cool. It's just not cool.
Yeah.
But some of that I think is, I didn't know we were going to talk about this. Like, it feels like when your grandparents make like a political shift, like better late than never or something, you know, like they're from a different time and they've evolved as time has gone on, just not as quickly as we might have wanted them to. Like, it's also, I'm radically biased because it's a game that I've been fucking playing for 35 years. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think you can both like be critical of where it came from, be happy that they're actively trying to work on it. And it sounds like if they are, directly hiring LGBT people, that it's not just lip service and still be critical. Like, yeah. All of that stuff can happen at the same time. And I feel like we have to, a lot of times, like, feel like we have to pick between outrage and praise, and we have to put them in the good or the bad category. And it's just not, that's not, we don't have to, we can be grateful.
Nuance is dead, Kyle. Tell me how to feel. No, you're right.
Just feel good. If you're going to pick, Mike, I would suggest good.
Is it my turn?
I think so.
Okay, we're going to play a game. Are you ready?
Is it D&T?
Yep.
Wait,
sort of.
I was going to say, you have to pay for Patreon if you want to hear us play D&D.
I'm going to name some stuff, and you're going to tell me if it is an actual monster from the 5th edition Monster Manual or a sex toy you can buy on adammail.com right now.
So I have Player's Handbook, which is what you use to help create your character. I own one of those and have looked at that. I have never looked at I've never owned or looked through a monster's manual. Except when you're like, hey, you ran into this Flibdorpidoo. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And so you show us the picture. And it's like, oh, that's a very ugly, weird thing. Cool.
Yep. Yeah. Well, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Monster or dildo? The Colt Torpedo.
Dildo.
Correct.
Okay.
That is a, I don't actually think it's a dildo. I think it's a sleeve, maybe. Anyway.
If it's
sex toy, I should say monster or sex toy.
Oh, can it be Colton Haynes Torpedo?
Yeah, for sure. How about helmed horror?
That sounds like a monster.
Correct. How about
crystal? Wait, are you going to tell me what the monster is? The
helmed horror?
Yeah.
I don't actually know all of these, by the way.
No, you don't. He's only allowed to watch Ed Helm movies, and he's been driven mad over time.
Yeah, you guys have fought one of these before. It's basically it's like an animated suit of armor.
Oh, okay.
Remember that time? No,
you guys Mike, fight? No. You can leave it. Okay, but what?
All right, great. I miss being.
I mean, you can continue asking me the question, but the answer is no.
Okay, yeah. You guys fought one before.
Okay.
A long time ago. How about Crystalino Whipster?
Ooh, I'm gonna go sex toy.
That is correct. It is a glass dildo.
Whipster, wow! But it has nothing to do with like anything BDSM-y or whippy or leathery.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
How about Erica?
It does have a flogger attached to the dildo.
There.
That's where the Whipster part comes from.
How about Aarakocra?
It has the word cock in it, so it has to be a monster that you're trying to get me to say sex toy. So I think monster.
You mic'd me so good. Yes, it is a monster. How about Honey Dipper?
Monster.
Incorrect. It is a glass sex toy as well.
Is it shaped like Winnie the Pooh or something?
I don't. The pot of honey, you put your dick in there, fill it with Nutella if you want to. It's fine. Okay, next, Climaximum Elate.
Okay, if Climaximum is not a sex toy, I don't know what is. Sex toy.
Correct.
Okay,
that is a sex toy.
Okay, Mike, I have a question for you. If that was a monster in D&D, what would it be?
The Climaximum Elate. My guess would be like a djinn of some kind that like its power was just to grant people orgasms, and but like it would use it as a weapon. Like if you were like walking, if you were holding a sword and walking towards a creature and it pointed at you and you just started jizzing, do you think you could actually continue to like attack it?
I only attack people when I jizz.
God. I only have 3 more. Deep gnome.
I mean, I'll just go monster because, yeah.
Correct. Those are evil race of gnomes.
Oh.
How about Zayden? Zayden.
Whoever he is, he sounds hot. He's a rich kid in the Upper West Side in New York. His parents didn't really care about him. His nanny raised him, and now he's just like sexy and looking to explore his body.
Okay.
But sure. So I'm going to go sex toy.
Correct. It is a sex toy. It's short for Zayden the Perfect Muscle Butt, and it is basically it's sex doll, but just the ass part.
Oh, so I could have my backstory and eat it too.
Exactly. And last but not least, purple worm.
Ooh, the image of putting something called worm in your butt is really grossing me out. So I'm going to hope it's a monster.
It is a yogurt spitting monster.
I didn't know until the very last word which way that was going.
No, it doesn't spit yogurt as far as I know. Mine would if I were the DM though. So enjoy. Anyway, that's the game, monster or sex toy.
I love that game. I really want to come up with the monster version of sex toys and in like a monster manual called like I don't know, the monster hand manual.
Wait, what would the special ability of Zayden the Perfect Muscle Butt be?
His crushing, the ability to crush you between his thighs. He's got like a flurry of blows, but with thighs.
He's got instant cast, crush me, daddy. Great. I love it.
Yeah. Like the Cumsters manual, the monsters, hand spankual. I don't know. Okay. Let me talk about LGBT representation in D&D podcasts.
Okay.
Do you listen to D&D podcasts?
I have listened to the Adventure Zone, like older stuff. I used to listen like every day, and then I just stopped, and I didn't mean to because I still really love it. And then I intended to catch up, and then I felt like I couldn't because it was too much. You know how it goes. Like when people like listen to our entire back catalog, I'm like, girl, what is wrong with you? I could not do that for a podcast I loved.
Oh, I do that. See, like I say the same thing, but then I'm like, oh, if I told someone who created the show I listen to, I'd like in my mind actually actively thought I need to stop doing this, because if I told one of the creators I listened to all of your show and they said, what's wrong with you? Then I would feel very bad. And I do that. Like I have a show that I pick and then I just listen to that one only. And then I get caught up and I get very sad. And then I pick the next one and then get caught up.
I've heard like an episode of Drunks and Dragons, and I went to a live taping of Not Another D&D Podcast.
Which that you hadn't heard before, right? You just
correct. I just showed up because there was a ticket and they had beer at that location.
Ticket and beer, and Mike is there. Keep that
Kevin
in mind.
Henderson, if you want to set your wedding, tickets and beer. That's all it takes.
Or Zayden, if you want to. What was was that thing's name?
Zayden, the Perfect Muscle Butt.
Great. What do you think of the live show? I actively listened to that, just fully caught up on it. Like I have been like binging that hard and I'm all caught up. But what do you think of the live show?
I think one of them is hot.
Yeah.
And that was distracting. They were also very funny. But I was also sad because they were redoing an encounter that their characters had already done before, and the audience clearly knew what was happening. So every time they did something different, it wasn't funny to me. I had no context, but everybody was very entertained.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the live shows of D&D podcasts because usually they're just like non-canonical or some kind of fun side quest or whatever. And like, I don't know. I want to listen to like my main quest.
Well, I also don't know how they're made, right? Like the talking about the rules and the rolling the dice part's pretty boring. I'm pretty sure you would edit that out before you like released a show. But if you're live and you're playing D&D live, you've got to like do that shit too. The bookkeeping stuff that's not fun.
I think yes, or other people like in their DMing style may just make up something on the spot, and so I don't think they do as much. I'm going to open up the book and look it up. I think they just say, "Here's what we're doing," you know.
Sure.
So, yeah, like if I were like playing for a show, I would not. If there was a question about what happens if no one knew. Unless it was like huge, this decides whether you kill the big evil thing and win and live and get the girl, or like, you know, unless it was that, I'd probably just be like, we'll make up like it's a this check, and we'll, you know, that'll be fine. So, there's the Adventure Zone is one of the first one I listened to. You actually introduced me to My Brother and Me, which is the show that three brothers do, one of the like biggest podcasts on the internet. And the Adventure Zone is their D&D podcast they did, also probably the biggest D&D podcast there is. And they struggled with at first accidentally falling into some of the LGBT tropes that we're kind of used to and know, but we're new to them. I think it's interesting.
It's three straight dudes and their dad, right? White straight dudes, right? And I think they've tried to be self-aware, but even if you're trying, you're going to fuck it up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first, I think this was the first LGBT representation was Hurley and Sloan, a lesbian couple, and one of them died trying to protect the other. So it's like supposed to be a sweet moment, but like also barrier gaze is a trope that often finds queer people dying at the end of movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
So they
hey Kyle.
Oh, hey Mike.
Fuck, marry, kill the McElroy brothers.
Mary Griffin. Yeah. He's the best. Oh man. Am I gonna fuck Travis?
I know, poor Justin. I wanted he's like so entertaining, but
he seems like he'd be a very good friend. And that's not one of the options you have presented to me.
Sorry, back to the Adventure Zone.
I mean, after the season of Graduation, if you ask the internet, everyone would have wanted to kill Travis, and a lot of that still lingers. And this is the gayest thing about me, like during COVID or during like the entire, like they have an arc called Graduation, everyone just fucking hated it, and I joined the subreddits of people shit talking him, and I would go to those, like I was just subscribed. I would read every time they posted, like here's like on the episode, whenever an episode comes up on the subreddit, they post the episode and everyone just shit talks how bad it is, and I would just read that like I was being tested on it the next day. I went back through all the Twitter posts where they post the episode and read everyone talking shit. I was just like in this world of like everyone being really hating it. And there was a value, an actual value in that for me of trying to remember that like they are making the biggest D&D podcast and the most popular podcast. They are some of the biggest podcasters out there, and they're making someone that so many people just hate. And and that's just how shit goes, you know, like trying to remember that was very useful to me. But also I was like, you know, the gay that want to be on all the gossip and shit talking that was happening. Yeah. Then it got very toxic and personal, which I disliked and stopped. But
that's like towards them.
Yeah. Like,
oh god,
there's like weird shit, like parasocial relationship. Even people that like them have this weird parasocial relationship where they start like using, like you'll see on the main subreddit, like people will be using their nicknames to describe them. Like, oh yeah, Juice talked about this thing. And it's like, you don't know him. That's his brother's nickname that you know of from the show. But like, yeah, there's like a weird relationship people have with them. And yeah. Anyway, Taco is the name Taako is the name of a character that Justin, the guy we just killed, played. And he was a gay character and ended up falling in love with the Grim Reaper named Kravitz, which I thought was really cool. That like I want an interesting gay character that falls in love with the Grim Reaper. Like that's cool. It's interesting because there were some kind of stereotypes he used in this character, like very well dressed, a little bit like didn't want to get his hands dirty.
Talked like Truman Capote.
Did he?
Kind of.
Oh, really? I don't remember that part.
His ridiculous voice. My name's Taco.
Oh, okay. Yes. Now that you do that, that was a good taco.
Thank you.
And it's interesting because he was still a fully realized character. He did the important things of he had depth, he had intrigue, he did shit. He wasn't just like, so I don't know. I think it's hard. How you can't just make a character completely devoid of any gay stereotypes. And that's not even like how any of us exist in the world. Like we all have stereotypes that we absolutely live up to. So a character will have some of those things. And I think if a gay person had played that, I might have given him more leeway to do those. Mostly the character of Taco has been well liked and well received. Mm-hmm. So, there were like little things that I just noticed, and I don't know. It's hard. Like when literally I would have judged it different if a gay person was doing that versus a straight person.
Yeah.
But is that okay? Like, how, I don't know.
I don't know. Should Eddie Redmayne have played that trans woman? I don't know.
Well, okay. Here's what's different. Okay. Or this is one of the questions. I mean, part of their shtick is they are three brothers. So unless and their dad, and that's like their kind of thing. So unless they get a new brother or individually make some major life decisions about themselves that they weren't prepared for, like this is kind of who they are. They could bring on someone else and they have like to like guest and stuff, but like, I don't know, that's kind of your shtick. So it's kind of weird to, I don't know. It's a very weird, unique place. And
for sure,
it's also so if you have four straight white dudes that are cis straight white dudes that are creating characters, the message shouldn't be just make them all cis straight white character or cis straight characters. Like that shouldn't be the thing. So I think they're doing the right things of trying it out, messing up, saying that they did it, creating new characters, doing it better.
Yeah, that gets kind of crazy, right? Like what parts are okay to change? Like we certainly don't ask everybody to play a human because there are other playable races that aren't human. So then once you open the door to like you can be something other than what you are in real life, what are the guardrails there, right?
Yeah. And I think when you're a like major podcast like them, I think it is a disservice to like the opposite is even worse of like not being at all inclusive and just having a bunch of straight dudes like walking around. Like that's not like, to be inclusive they would have to then play characters that are not that they're gonna have to go on a limb on, and they can do that in a way by what was it, which one, I have way too much information here to talk about it, but like one of the Dimension 20, which is not a podcast I listen to, but they have paid queer consultants that they include because they're big enough to pay. Like at a certain level, you're big enough to pay to make that shit happen. And
should we put Patreon money towards hiring a straight consultant?
Oh my God. Can we hire like a sexy straight assistant to like,
can we call him Zayden, the perfect muscle butt?
Can he be very one dimension, like, or two dimensional and not have any personality? Just like gay characters have been treated.
Two butt cheeks?
Put my head between those two dimensions. I thought you were gonna well, yeah. Yes. My answer is yes, we should absolutely do that. There's also the issue of like these podcasts are non-scripted. So unlike Eddie Redmayne playing a character where they can actively go out, plan it, find the right character, or find the right actor for that character, and like whatever, like they took this big like production budget and time and effort and and they knew what they were doing and put their money towards a cis dude, you know, like versus developing up a character and it evolves over time. And they are now big enough that they could probably pay, I don't know if they do or not, pay consultants to do this shit.
Yeah, it's a weird intersection. You're super right? Like you're not only acting, but you're also writing as you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's, I mean, I was thinking like that's almost more dangerous because I think that leads to the ability of like your natural inherent blind spots to come out. Yeah. That you don't know because you don't have the time to sit and think like, oh, hold on, let me think. Is this a problematic thing that my character would say, or what should they wear? Or they didn't know that characters, like gay characters, always died like that. You know, there's, I think it could be a little bit riskier to do it all improv.
Yep.
So one of the articles I read mentioned like, also, how much leeway should we give them? Because in D&D, characters die. Lots of characters die. It's different than in a movie, in a love story where, you know, at the end, you know, the gay single dude, a single man's himself, like, or, D&D is a different world. And so a character's death during combat, like, it might be a little bit more commonplace. So how do you, there's a lot to reconcile there.
Yeah.
In their podcast, Loop was a trans character that had a actual relationship with a person. Her transness was not the focus. Sir Fitzroy Maplecourt, Knight and Absentia of the Realm of Goodcastle, was asexual, and that's one that like Griffin decided over time, like kind of evolved into that decision, which again, like that's the improv sort that you like learn about the characters you play them. And it's interesting how little asexual representation there is. Like this was everything I read was very positive for having an ace character.
Yeah. An overtly ace character, right? Like there are a lot of NPCs or like you know, in movies, I guess they would be, what's that called?
Secondary?
The randos on the street are the extras.
No.
But like they don't have a story at all, ace or otherwise, right? But so to have an actual like overt, I don't want to bone character is pretty great.
Yeah. There the friend of the show, he's been on once, Matt Baum, who was in episode 103, Gamers, has a DD podcast that originally was called Dungeons and Drag Queens, currently called Queens of Adventure. Mm-hmm. So that's probably one of the biggest queer D&D podcasts. I listen to Queer Dungeoneers, which is a smaller kind of outfit. They are Australian, so you get that to look forward to. It's not D&D, it's the whatever 2d6 kind of dice system that but I think still does really well. Their tagline is, "It is about being who you are by being someone different." Which I love. My favorite one is Dungeons and Daddies, which has very little LGBT representation. One of the NPCs is gay. And it's not like being gay is not the focus of it. They're the only ones I actually emailed them to ask if they wanted to talk about straight people and representing gay characters. And they didn't respond.
Well,
probably too big for us, but not another D&D podcast. This took a little bit of work. I did like, that is the live show you saw, the one that I've just binged the whole thing on. And I found on the internet that Emily Axford, one of the people on that show, has said in one of their like Patreon or bonus episodes that she is attracted to women. So unconfirmed she's in a relationship with the DM of the group. So bi, pan, queer, something, you know, she's something. But that's not like, she's not like super out. And all of her characters though, like often have at least interest in a woman. So, or if not, you know, outright bisexual. So, so that's some of the, is there anything? Oh, one thing I should say about the Avengers Zone that they have not been good at is they had an entire kind of white savior episode arc on Graduation. There were like a couple episodes where like students from university went out to this other these two warring tribes, and
Oh,
like
God.
with little information about, you know, like went to class for like, hey, here's what they're fighting about, and then like had to bring these two tribes together to help them resolve their differences. And like that's one that they have not addressed, like people have, at least that I've seen, they've not written in. So it's interesting. We're talking about like, I feel like we can be good kind of judges of LGBT representation, but there's entire things that we need to think about. And, you know, I might not have thought about it had people not written about it. So like everyone's got to be chill with everyone.
Be chill, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to do anything now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, the only other, the last thing that I had was just like I forget if I've talked about it on the show before or not. The sob story of all of my childhood D&D stuff.
Oh,
have I told you this?
oh,
You know this?
no, I don't think so.
I mean, I had an original Redbox set. Like Wizards of the Coast has done a Redbox set like recently, but I had one of the ones that was like from the 80s. And that was like the little kit that got you like the very first like shit that you needed to play. It was like the player's manual and a set of dice and like a character sheet and used that. And then throughout the years, like bought a bunch of AD&D stuff, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, bought all of the books for third edition when third edition came out, which I'm trying to remember when that was. But then, you know, played all through middle school with like the neighbor kids, and about the time like I graduated from high school, sort of just like boxed it all up, and I don't know, moved on. And my ex-wife threw it all away. I'm still really, really mad at her. Like we were moving from Spokane to Seattle, so it was 2003, and I still had all of this stuff like tucked away in a box that like she refused to put on the truck. I was like, here's this last box, we're putting it on the truck. And she's like, no, the dumpster's right there. And like, oh my goodness, when I look back at that time of my life and I think about all the fucked up decisions that I was making and all of the emotional baggage that I have from that whole time, there's so much shit that I can't believe I fucking rolled over on when it came to her and our relationship. Like I was so desperate to keep on her good side and be the straight husband that she needed me to be, that I wanted to be because I didn't want to be gay. Anyway, it just breaks my heart. I threw away probably, I don't know, $500 or $600 worth of Dungeons and Dragons shit, all because she's just a terrible person.
Do you remember, like, what do you think she would have done if you had said, like, no, I'm keeping it? Like, what?
I don't know, because I never stood up to her about anything. Like, I have, except for leaving her, which that did not go well. There's a lot of screaming and slamming of doors and throwing of shit. So I know she's capable of that.
It seems worth just like calling out, because I've experienced this. A lot of people experience being with someone who doesn't support your interests, and in some cases actively pushes you away from your interests or your friends or things like that. If you're with someone, they don't have to be interested in the same things as you, but they should at least give you the space to be interested in them. And if they don't, that's a huge red flag, and that person is garbage and you should get away from them.
Yeah. Any time or energy that I put into anything that wasn't her, I was taking time and energy away from her. And it was very transactional with her. That's how she operated. Like all of my bandwidth had to be dedicated to her. It was demanded at all times. And, that was working for me in a fucked up dysfunctional way for where I was in my development. And don't be with that person, everybody. Like,
no, Dan, I think you're super right about like what if your happiness, if they're willing to literally put in the trash your happiness, like that's not a person that loves you in a way that is useful to you, or supportive of you. I absolutely understand the reflection now back on, oh, I can't believe I did that. Like, but it's interesting knowing that like you weren't in a place you couldn't, it sounds like you were not ready to make a different decision. You couldn't have made a different decision. Like you can't insert all the knowledge you now have into that brain and tell it what to do, because you had to go through it to get to a place where now you know what and how to stand up for yourself in that way.
Yes, you are right.
Well, that's been Gayish, everybody.
I almost wish that my coming out had been hard, because then it would have justified all of that shit. Like the fact that like I got zero negative reactions from anybody in my life except for her, meant I was all like bundled up in knots over nothing.
It was,
and so I'm not trying to detract from what you said, because you're absolutely right that person.
That's where we really needed to land. Right. Okay. Let's remind everyone how right I was.
Was just doing what he could to make it through his life and wasn't in a place to do anything different. And I am that person. And he's very disappointing sometimes.
Oh, God. Wow. Mike, it was hard because it was hard. You're saying it shouldn't have been hard, but it was. And so it was. Like, other people's reactions doesn't mean it wasn't hard for you. And I think that the pressure that society puts us, we often discount to such an extreme level. You did not create the idea that being gay was bad. That did not come from little baby Mike that popped out of his mom's currently probably hairy infected vagina. Like, that was placed and reinforced in your head over a point of time that it was hard, and people's reaction to it is great and supportive, but that doesn't mean it wasn't hard for you, and you got those ideas somewhere and you overcame that, whatever it was. You did not invent those things. You did not invent a struggle for struggle's sake. You legitimately went through something hard, and don't take the difficulty away from yourself and try to change history and make it feel like you should have done something different. It was hard because you told me it was hard. Like,
yeah.
And that's why that's the backstory for my character. His name is Guantanamo Joe, and he's going to be Mike, but in the form of a human fighter.
Yep. Gonna get married to a redhead, right? And...
a red dragon.
Yeah. Be careful.
Known for breathing fire.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just going to mention some of the characters. You were the one that introduced me to this. I'm sure we mentioned this like on episode, -14 or whatever. But like, you were the one that introduced me to D&D when I broke up with my. I'm sorry, were you done being sad? I'm going to be sad.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out a segue, because there's the whole thing of like, am I moving on? Am I moving the conversation on to like get out of the uncomfortableness, or like is it actually over? And then how do I get to the thing that I know that we also want to talk about, which is what you're going into here, your story, your character you're playing now, and when you got started with D&D and all of that.
No, we can keep being sad about you for a little bit.
Were we playing D&D before we started the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Great. It feels like we've been doing Gayish for 111 years now. So
that's what like old married couples say to each other, like when they're talking about how much they hate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree, I guess.
I think we should get separate bedrooms so that like your snoring doesn't keep me up at night. And...
Okay, that's real.
It is real. I found a file on my phone that's called Kyle Snoring, because when we were in Portland, I was so pissed at you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Back.
This is why we get separate rooms when we travel now. And so we can have sex.
Well,
that and so I can just sleep. You I was friends with you. I had just broken up with my boyfriend at the time, and Jay-Z. And it was one of those things where I was like, I don't have a lot of friends or people in my life. It was one of those, like, all of a sudden there's this emptiness, both rectally and mentally, in the anus of my mind. And I was like, oh God, like, am I friends with people? Do I have things to do? What am I going to do tonight? Like, he was my first big relationship. And so, like, was everything, and he was the more social one. And so, like, I don't know, it was just this big, like, oh God, what now? And so, you brought me into the D&D group you had, where I knew one of the people already, but at the time it was you, Trevor, a person I'd met once, and a couple new people. And that's been turned into now, like, my core group of friends, which you're the reason I am friends with any of those people. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It does bring people together, which is like, that's one of the rebuttals to, like, all these Christian parents freaking the fuck out. Is like, how about, like, your kids are inside, they're not doing drugs or burning down the mall. Like,
well, I mean, sometimes drugs, we're not,
we don't not do drugs when we play D&D, if that's what you're saying. But marijuana is legal in this state.
Sure. And always was. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. This isn't necessarily part of what you were saying, but, like, that group started because of my ex-husband, and there's definitely, like, even still sometimes feelings about that, right? Like, I got all of you in the divorce because that was the right answer, but also, like, there's an origin story there where, like, Trevor doesn't start working at the Fry, and Trevor doesn't meet Carly, and Trevor doesn't, like, solidify that friendship and then have us hang out with Matt, and then we start this game, and then, like, that's a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to be said for, like, being grateful for him for things that happened. Like, this group came together for some of those reasons, but also then we all independently, like, it's not like then we were forced upon you, and like we all had our own decisions to make, and we all did what we wanted to do. So it's, yeah. Well, my very first character was Rokai. He was a tiefling. I don't remember anything about him.
We were playing 4th edition then.
And at this time didn't know what that meant. My next one that I've been playing for the longest. How long did I play Thur? Thur is a barbarian. But
yes.
He 4 years, or I don't know, something, long time.
6 years, I think.
Ooh.
And it was a very long time.
And I just wanted to be a dumb straight dude. I intentionally went for the stereotypes in this case, because I could you're allowed to stereotype up, not down, I think is the and he just fucked, and he was dumb, and he hit shit, and that was a lot of fun. And now I'm playing Doctor, which is a non-binary character, and Doctor is a what is Doctor? A
dwarf.
Dwarf. I almost said gnome. A dwarf a paladin dwarf. But I think one of the cool things at first, when we were talking about, like, podcasts and representation and playing other characters, there is a little bit of a, like, oh, you're a straight dude playing a gay character. I think, but putting the podcast part of it aside, I think it's really good and healthy for people to be able to play other characters, because, like, that may give them access to trying out things in a way that they may not be able to try out in everyday life. There's a fantasy element, there's a safety to it, there's a fiction part but you're pretending to be that character and doing shit that I think realizing the ability for people to explore in that space in a really cool, interesting, unique way that like there's nothing else that I can compare to Dungeons and Dragons. Improv, we said that, sure, but like, I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing that barely, I don't know. So the ability to explore that is very cool and unique. And I think,
yeah, absolutely. And there's it's also just fun. Like, it's fun to see your friends on a regular cadence and like get together and do a thing together. And we're all being different people while we're playing the game. And it's fun to like get to know each other on a different level than real life. And it's go play D&D, everybody, and worship Satan.
How do you find a D&D group? Do you know this? I have no idea. I was just lucky.
Well, sometimes it just means coming out of the closet and letting people know that you are interested in playing D&D. And but there are resources online also. D&D Beyond is a website that Wizards of the Coast has that's like a resource for Dungeons and Dragons. You can make a character on there that has like, if you want to pay them money, you can get like access to the rule books and stuff like that in digital form. But I believe they probably still do have a matching process and
like Tinder for D&D.
Yeah. But a lot of that's for like online games, so you can play like over a webcam on like Roll20 or one of those other kinds of services. And then there's also a board game shop here in Ballard that has D&D events where they let people bring their character sheet and sit down at a table of strangers and play.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. Yeah, but people do it. But I would recommend
knowing that there's everyone else there is also terrified and just walking in with character sheets, but you all have the same goal of sit down and play D&D. That's a nice venue to be able to do that.
Yes, exactly. And but I would recommend just like you have nerd friends or friends you suspect secretly are nerds.
Yeah,
and
look around, find your friend who's wearing glasses. Find your friend that actively tells you what book they recently read. Find your friend that whose TV broke and didn't replace it right away. I'm trying to know how to like spot potential D&D fans.
Yeah, they're into at least one weird craft, like they knit or they make their own pickles or like
they tuck their shirt in. So many ways.
Or they're gay. Lots of gay people play D&D. And I think a lot of that is just rooted in like, being gay is hard. I want to be somebody else for a while.
Thor could just hit on the ladies and fuck,
Exactly.
We also in our Discord have a Dungeons and Dragons channel if you want to join and ask other people for help.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about D&D?
I mean, lots of things to say about D&D, but I think we've talked for a long time already.
Yeah.
There'll be a D&D part 3, maybe.
I do want to say for anybody that where D&D feels overwhelming or they've never played before, or like it sounds like that maybe they have some interest, but it sounds like a lot, and some of the weird jargon that you guys have used went way over their heads like it did me. I'm going to be playing in this Patreon game and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm trying to build a character right now and it's a little confusing but also fun, and our DM Chris assured me that if I'm not having fun then we're doing something wrong, and it's all about having fun. So apparently I'm doing something wrong already because the math has been really frustrating, like trying to understand the math. But Mike and Chris and Kyle have all been really supportive, and so I'm hoping that my participation in this little short campaign that we're doing for Patreon, hopefully I can represent those people that are new to it, and anybody that's interested what can kind of experience the newness through me, and maybe I'll make it seem fun.
Yeah.
That's what I hope. So
Yeah.
we'll find out. We're not time caving right now. We have not, tomorrow night we meet for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun, but yeah, it'll be hopefully accessible to new people because a new person is at the table there playing. So
yeah. So I'm going to be actively trying to ask questions when people use weird phrases like 2d6 or HP or con, or I'm going to be that guy, as I was with World of Warcraft. So
Okay. Everybody,
I'm not
listen.
going to be intentionally stupid like I am with World of Warcraft, though.
Everybody can listen for this. It is going to be so hard for me to let Chris answer the questions. Like, I was a DM for many, many, many years, and I want to be helpful. Where those things intersect is somebody asking a question I know the answer to about D&D. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway.
Listen to see if that happens.
Yeah. Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's roll initiative.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
Woo, we're back. We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, but first, our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are on all social media at Gayish Podcast, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Download the Discord if you want to go to the Dungeons and Dragons channel. Yeah.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails. It's 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rate supply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. A few programming notes for you. So, speaking of World of Warcraft, if you are interested in playing World of Warcraft with us, the guild night has moved. It's now Mondays instead of Wednesdays. So if that's more convenient for you and now you want to hang out, that's when you should do it. We talk on our Discord and we do stuff and it's fun. So roll an alliance character on Thunderlord and come join us on Monday nights. It's fun. Also, tonight, the night this airs, tonight, Kyle, December the 2nd, Thursday, December the 2nd, at 6 p.m. Pacific, we are doing For Attention, which is a intimate look at self-harm and suicide in the LGBTQ plus community. And we're going to have an awesome panel of speakers, including Pangina Heels, who is a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race Thailand, and Brock McGillis, who's the hot hockey player that we talked to on the Jocks episode. We're going to talk to all kinds of people, and then we're going to screen Kyle's documentary called For Attention, and then we're going to do Q&A stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, if you are a listen when this comes out right away, then that option is still available for you. We, if not, we are going to be posting. I'll post the documentary at some point on the internet after that. But yeah, hopefully this will be interesting and helpful. I always see numbers posted about self-harm and like the Trevor Project numbers that get posted a lot. And it's just harder to find actual individuals talking about what it's like. So hopefully this is a useful and more personal look at self-harm and suicide. Yeah. Secret Santa. If you're doing Secret Santa, the Gayish Secret Santa thing, then boy, buy your order gift on the internet so it arrives in time for your Secret Santa.
Mm-hmm. Do it. Although I opened mine accidentally.
Because you just got like a box and you're like, oh, I got a box. Is that because that's
what I
did
all the time? Like,
yeah, same. Gayest and Straightest?
Yeah, let's do our Gayest and Straightest. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. The straightest thing about me this week, I got the oil changed in the Jeep, and the conversation I had with the oil dude was pretty fucking butch.
The oil dude. Yep.
But the gayest thing about me this week is every single upcharge he tried to give me. I was just like, yeah, I don't know what that is. Sure. Yes. Engine flush, wiper blades, oil filter, everything. Yes, just do it. Yes, all the things. Because I don't want to do it.
I feel like I'd be the opposite. I'd say no, assuming they're trying to screw me like out of something. And then like later they'd be like, no, the like engine repair we need to do is to fix it so your car runs. And I'd be like, no, I don't want that. I'm pushing it.
So everything that they said that was like under $25, and I was like, yeah, sure. Like, if they were like, we want to do this $400 transponder realignment, and then that would be like, maybe no.
I need to go to my therapist and get my transponders realigned. It's been a while.
Yeah, you do. How about you?
My gayest is that I currently have some pink hair.
Ooh. Oh yeah, you do. I couldn't see it the way that's lit.
The dark corner in my place that I sit so it doesn't echo. Yeah. My hair is like the front of it at least is dyed pink because I just got a haircut. The straightest thing about me is that it was my hairstylist idea and not mine. She was like, she dyed my hair for Pride at her suggestion, and then later she's like, do you want to get more colors? And I was like, okay. She's like, maybe like purple or pink, and I was like, okay. And she's like, no, you have to pick which one do you want? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess pink. But like, this was all her idea. So yeah, thanks, Tiffany.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tiffany. No Gayest or Straightest from a listener this week. Fuck him.
Yeah. Be gay and straighter in your own time. I would like to thank the following amazing Super Gap Bridgers: Josh Copeland, Forrest Nail, Patrick Martin, Anonymous, James Barrow, Explosive Lasagna, Christopher Farrell, Jamie Pugh, Kevin Henderson, Tipsy McStumbles, Donald Linsky, Thomas B. Dusty Sands, A.E. Coleman, Chris Kajatorian, Jerome York, and Cian and Javi.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks. We appreciate it.
That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Kachatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you.
See you next week.
What the fuck does roll initiative mean? Jesus, I'm screwed.